Before I open the meeting, I ask everyone to please silence your cell phones. It's important to give the respect to each person that's speaking, whether at the podium, up here, or the staff. So we want to make sure we give them the opportunity to be able to be heard and that we're paying attention and listening. Thank you very much. With that, I'd like to call to order the Thursday, June 20th, 2024, 6 p.m. regular town council meeting. Please join me in standing for a moment of silence, which will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, on our roll call of members, all members are present. I don't have any additions to the agenda. Is there approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Williams, do you have discussion?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I'd like to ask if we could put the actual vote for the budget prior to the vote for the tax increase. It seems to be, I've heard constituents mention this, it seems to be out of order. It seems like we should vote the opposite of the way we have it set up.
Okay, so you would like to amend the agenda, like to propose an amendment to the agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor. Mr. Duggan? Looks like he has nothing.
Just comment, you need to have money to pass the budget as presented. If you vote on the budget as presented, then if you don't vote on the funds, then you're gonna have a deficit. So I would think you would want to vote on the tax first.
Okay,
So you're saying it's not appropriate to do it the opposite way?
I think it could just cause difficulty with the meeting. It's simpler to do the tax rate first.
all right, we're gonna just keep it as it is
I'll
then?
just withdraw my motion.
Okay, all right, is there any further discussion?
Oh, one more discussion.
Yes.
I'd like to see if we could pull the resolution to buy the new crane truck out of the consent agenda and have a council discussion on here.
When we get to that, that is the only thing on the consent agenda, is that correct? And we'll just do a discussion then at that point, is
Okay.
that okay?
Yeah, I was just wasn't sure it was just one item was on the consent. So, okay.
Okay, all right, all in favor of the agenda as is?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and we'll just move right into the amendment. The consent agenda has a resolution 25-24 for the amendment appropriation of the general fund to the crane truck. And Chris, you want to read us into that, or Lisa?
So, this is actually the old crane truck that was replaced with a new one because it had difficulties running the crane. When that was done, we put it into a fleet for the streets crew. We've been using that truck since then, which was in 2015, I want to say. And that truck has since failed with a cracked engine block after we've done multiple upgrades, repairs, and maintenance on it. The truck's a 2009. It's old. It's outlived its useful life. And unfortunately, we had catastrophic failure on it. So we're down realistically 3 trucks at the moment. This is the only one I'm trying to replace because it's used every day.
Lisa, you want to speak to the funds?
Looking over our fiscal '24 budget, we have had some additional revenue that we have received over our budget. One of the line items that we're asking to bring those funds into the budget is the interest we have received on our sweep account. There's enough money that we've made in interest to cover the purchase of this truck. So this money's still gonna be in the 24 budget. It's money that we've earned in 24 on our funds.
The budget that ends in 10 days.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'm a little confused because normally when we have something like this on the consent agenda, it's something we've already approved and we just need to do the legal part of amending and appropriating. Is that not the case?
No, I don't think it's something that you've already approved. It's things we're
We
bringing
have not approved
forward.
the purchase of the truck, but the truck.
No, this is us bringing you to approve the purchase of this truck.
Okay. That,
Because we had a catastrophic failure on the truck, we need to replace it.
So
I
more
would
than.
suggest that not be a consent agenda item ever, if you're asking us to approve a new purchase that we haven't already approved.
Yeah,
So consent, items on consent agenda, just, they are up to you for, approval, but it just means that they're, not anything that's controversial and it's something that could easily be voted on and approved.
I think controversial is a relative word. If it's something we haven't approved and we're being asked to approve the expenditure of money for something that wasn't already in the budget, that's different from appropriating. You understand what I'm talking about, Lisa?
Yeah, and I
Maybe
think,
you can explain it better than me.
and I think Councilman, Williams, started to make a motion to remove that from consent for discussion, but I don't know what happened to that.
yeah, we just said we would discuss it now.
On the item, so we
Yeah,
can
so this
discuss
is-
it.
I mean, we're doing the same thing that we would do later in the agenda right now.
I'm just suggesting that as a general policy, if it's something we haven't approved, it shouldn't be in the consent agenda.
Yeah,
I agree.
Okay. So I think there's policy direction there, now but back to the actual item, is there a motion to amend and appropriate for this item? Is there a second?
Second.
Is there further discussion on this item?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Williams?
Lisa, you said something about sweep funds? What exactly is that? I've not heard that.
Our main checking account is a sweep account. So every night, the money sweeps into an investment account and earns interest. And every morning, they sweep the money back in to our checking account. That's all it is.
Okay, so it's like just quick interest, like on a daily basis.
Well, because it earns more interest if it's moved into a sweep account where they have investments and then what comes, it just goes in and out each night. We make money on it every night, it comes back in with the interest.
Okay, so this is not something that's, can be worked into our normal budget? This is kind of like found funds on a regular basis or?
Well, it depends what the interest rates are and how investments are doing, so it's not a guaranteed thing. We budgeted last year based on what we had done the previous year, what interest rates were at the time of the budget,
Okay.
and they've changed since then.
And this is kind of leads to a question I have about the budget in general. I know we'll have a discussion later on that, but do we have any carryover funds? I mean, this seems like something that would be a carryover fund. Natasha, do we have like any carryover funds that are going into the 25 budget? Because I didn't see it as a line item in our actual budget.
Normally, we don't appropriate those until we've reconciled the year.
Right, we wouldn't do anything with any kind of carryover money until after the audit has been completed. And last year, once the audit was completed, we had $1.1 million that went into our reserves. We didn't carry anything forward into fiscal '24. It's all stays in the reserves. And whatever we have at the end of this year, the only thing we would really carry over is things we would have to carry over that we have items encumbered for at the end of June that haven't come in, like a lot of Chris's stuff is on back orders. So we might be carrying that forward at the end of the audit if we finally get the equipment or parts in.
Okay. Let's see. Seems like there was something else I was gonna ask about that carryover. Oh, one of the questions I did have about the purchase of the truck is, I know you're saying it's an urgent emergency type need. We only have like a week left in the fiscal year. Is there a reason why it couldn't have been budgeted into the next fiscal year versus coming to us as an emergency purchase last minute?
This truck literally just failed over the course of 2 weekends ago. We found two trucks available right now. Otherwise, we have to order it and it's 10 to 14 weeks out before we can get a truck to replace it with.
Okay. All right, thank you.
My understanding is we have money available to purchase this truck.
Yes, because we've made more interest this year than we budgeted, so yes.
Okay.
We have money that we have earned in fiscal '24 that was not in the budget, wasn't anticipated because of interest rates at that time. They've changed, we've made more interest, and we have enough to cover the cost of this truck.
So we're anticipating money that we could put in the reserve at the end of June because we have all this extra money?
We won't know what's gonna go back in the reserves until after the audit's complete.
But you're anticipating.
I am
that you got this
anticipating, yes,
money.
ma'am.
And you have a ballpark
Not at this time,
more than the same, about the same as last year?
probably not as high.
Okay. Half?
I'm sure we
Dr.
can't
Sullivan, I
comment.
think we should give staff those kinds of questions.
Right,
Good
because
research.
there's a lot that
No, but I
goes
think
into
it's
it.
pertinent to the next budget that we have. If we're gonna have money,
I don't know how much it would be. There's a lot of audit work that still needs to be done. We still need to close out the year. I don't want to really give a number that I'm not sure of at this point.
Yes,
Let's see if we can truncate this. We have the money for it based on.
Use your
the
mic,
interest that we've
please.
got.
use your mic, please.
he has to use your mic.
Mike is the one, sorry, it's the one I guess I didn't have close. Okay, so we have the money to purchase this, okay. We need the truck. We can get a deal on the truck. Thanks.
Okay, is there any further discussion about the crane truck? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Sullivan?
Aye.
Ms. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ellison?
Aye.
Mr. Wood?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Robertson?
Aye.
And I go aye. Okay. All right, next up is the council member liaison and commission reports. And I will start with Mr. Wood on your side.
Okay, let's see if we get Mike close enough. Okay, so it's been a busy couple of weeks for Public Works, two major events. The town was spotless, by the way. Mr. Ruxy, thanks to you and your team for keeping our town nice and clean and presenting us as best we can to our visitors. There have been 6 installs this week. One being the new food court, so we're excited that's done. We're going to be, let's see, there are 4 major pumps coming for the wastewater treatment plant. And there's going to be paving over the next week for all of those utility lifts that we've seen throughout town. And that's it for this week.
Okay, Mr. Williams?
Okay, good evening, everybody. Just a few updates from the Planning Commission. Let's see. They had their last meeting on the 13th, and one of the concerns that was raised at the very beginning, and I asked this myself, is would the meeting be live streamed? And they said that they could not get it to work. So I'm not sure, Heather, you always seem pretty good about getting it to work. So I don't know if you could maybe give some advice to Spencer. But so that's one of the concerns. We do actually have the audio available now on YouTube, so people can go and watch that at least, or listen to that. Let's see, public comment. There was one comment about the CIP and the referral process. I know last meeting we all discussed the CIP going back to them. There wasn't enough time to get it on the agenda, so it'll go back next month. And I asked Mr. Dooley if there was any time constraints on that, and he said no. But obviously we want to get that done sooner than later. Let's see, and then also they went over 2403, the Maritime Resort. That was discussed on that's part of the zone for Article 20. Just a brief summary about what happened during that discussion. It was only about, as I've mentioned before, it's only about the definition. It's not actually getting too deep into the zoning itself. Currently, like the marinas fall under C1, and let's see, at this point, the Colonial Beach Yacht Club was requesting, the owner was requesting the RVs be added to the definition. Currently, there's 4 non-conforming RV spaces at the yacht club. That was brought up at the meeting. And it was a very hot topic. There was a lot of people that came and spoke and wrote in. Roughly 2 to 1 were against allowing RVs in the Maritime Resort, or the Maritime Resort zone. And there were a couple that were neutral, but about 18 or so were against and 9 were for. The support was mainly about the benefits of adding business to town, but some of the concerns that were raised were coastal towns are kind of going in the opposite direction. They're not allowing RVs. So somebody was concerned that was a little unusual that we were going the opposite direction. Road safety, sewer, water, pedestrians, safety, flooding was one of the concerns. Down there it does flood quite a bit. They said they're too big, they wear the roads down, and there weren't much benefit. Those are just some of the comments. The Planning Commission had a long discussion about all that. Some for, some against. After the discussion, they mentioned the number of citizens that spoke. Member Max made a motion to table the discussion until next month, and the vote was 7-0 to table. I believe it was 7-0 table it next month. They also approved their work plan, and the Colonial Beach Housing and Redevelopment Authority, or Redevelopment and Housing Authority, they're going to have their next meeting. It was supposed to be, I think, last week, but they had to move it to the 27th at 4:30. So the 27th will be here in June. And then one thing I had is sort of related to planning is I was going to ask I talked to the town manager the other day. I was going to ask if she had an update. I know a lot of citizens have been asking me about the Dotson development phase 4, whether they're going to actually purchase that property or if the town's going to maintain ownership of it. Ms. Tucker, do you have any updates on?
I don't have an update since you spoke on Tuesday.
Okay. If there's no objection for council, I'd like to ask if we could get maybe an answer next meeting. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you. Ms. Robertson?
Just a couple of things. There is a step and stroll on the fourth Friday of the month, and then triathlon, we still have on the 23rd.
Yes.
Yeah, so keep your eyeballs focused on riders, because they started.
We can't hear back here.
Sorry. We have a sip and stroll this Friday, and the triathlon is the 23rd. So keep your eye out for the individuals who are participating.
Dr. Joe Sullivan? Good evening, everyone. Dr. Mitchell is here, so he's going to give you a longer presentation report from the schools, but I just wanted to say how pleased we were to have such great representation by our local schools at our Juneteenth event yesterday. Sergeant Wright has put together a first step team that we've had in a long time, and we had 4 students on stage performing a step move. And we had five nominees for Youth Champion Awards, and 4 of those winners were from Colonial Beach High School or recent graduates of Colonial Beach High School. And we had members of the school board present and members of the administrative staff present, as well as members of the Westmoreland Board of Supervisors and Town Council were there, and it was a wonderful event. And I think it really went a long way into showing our support for all citizens in our town.
Ms. Brown?
Good evening, just a few things. I think that the rescue squad, the fire department, and the police department have been super busy with all the events in town, starting with the Fireman's Parade, Potomac River Festival weekend, and then the Juneteenth event yesterday. So thank you to all our first responders for being there. Colonial Beach Volunteer Rescue Squad has asked our citizens to continue if you are able to donate. Mr. Tribbett, I know is here. Thank you, Mr. Tribbett, for standing up for Colonial Beach again Monday with the Board of Supervisors supporting the merger and continue to support the MOU and the budget for the rescue squad. But that said, again, if you're a citizen and are able to contribute or volunteer to the rescue squad, they're always looking for donations. As you know, they will need a new home. The rescue squads have not figured out exactly where the funds will come from yet. So please continue to donate if you are able to the rescue squad. Special shout out again yesterday, and really to Dr. Karen, the Juneteenth event. That was my first time going to a Juneteenth event. It was such a positive, fun festival. It was really like a lot of fun. It was cool. There was a lot of dancing. The police were there, the rescue squad, everyone was there. Public Works was there working their behinds off. Yeah, just a lot of fun. And I know that most everyone was here that was here could attend. So that was super, super awesome, a lot of fun. So thank you, Dr. Karen, for continuing to organize that. And last but not least, Colonial Rod Club, if you were able to go to the Father's Day show this past weekend, I've gone to that several years in a row, great time. And again, that brings so much tourists and business to our town. Their next event is in August, I think 17th, 18th, it's that weekend. So I'd recommend to do that. It's a lot of fun. And nothing else right now. That's it.
Mr. Allen?
So for the budget, we got the budget. So I won't go too far into that. We're gonna work on that a little bit later. So what I do wanna announce is that the alumni girls softball game happened last Saturday. Normally that's what happens either, I think the second weekend of May, but it got rained out. So we had that taken care of. Well attended. The ladies had a great time playing. I know Madam Mayor was in there and she might have pulled a muscle or two.
I'm sorry.
But what I do want to announce is that during that initial start of the game, the Colonial Beach Boosters Club worked out that the admissions for that will go on as a scholarship in the name of Pat Fitzgerald. So as we continue this alumni game throughout the years, that admission for that will be cycled back into our school system as a scholarship for Pat Fitzgerald. And she's going to help at the next award ceremony, picking out more than likely a woman athlete that's in softball. But I just wanted to point that out so that way everybody knows that as that comes back around next year, we want to see a whole lot more people attend that. It's only $5 to get in. And that way we can get that scholarship up a lot more than what it is now. Currently it's at $400, but we have people that are going to donate additional funds for that. So just wanted to point that out. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, it's been a busy couple of weeks since Potomac River Festival, which I know we have Chief Roby in the audience, was the best fireman's parade still to this date. I don't know how you pull off better than last year, but somehow you did it. And so we just really appreciate that. I think that shows support for the fire department and emergency services at that event. Rings true for a sense of community here in Colonial Beach for the whole year round, and I sort of a pep for all of us to have the trucks out, and I just appreciate that. The car show, also a fantastic event. Public Works did great over Potomac River Festival as well. Traffic from our police department was handled very well. Everything very organized. I think I'd be remiss to say how grateful I am for how our police department has handled all the activities of late. Some things that are very difficult in our community and that affect a lot of people, and it's still investigations are still underway, so I don't want to get ahead of that, but I just appreciate the efforts of the police department of late especially, and all the work you guys have done. The Economic Development Team and Tourism Department recently hosted the Smart Tech Discovery Challenge with Go Virginia, and the Stafford County Economic Development and Riot Training. This was 13 tech companies that visited Colonial Beach to discuss solutions to challenges facing localities. I was a part of this last year. They come back to do a second session. I believe Dr. Sullivan was there to greet them this time, and we're very excited about these smart tech companies and the representatives and their leaders that come from worldwide places to provide services, solutions for needs in municipalities. It's like a tested bed for ideas that can help solve some of our problems. The town of Colonial Beach was recently represented at the National Main Street America Conference. If you don't know what Main Street is, Main Street leads a collaborative movement with partners and grassroots leaders and advances shared prosperity. It creates resilient economies and improves the quality of life through place-based economic development and community preservation in downtowns and neighborhood commercial districts across the country. Main Street America offers resources and opportunities to cities and towns, and we are participating with that to try to get to a full Main Street status. The Economic Development and Tourism Department also recently hosted the Virginia Tourism Corporation's Content Management Team. For many of them, this was their first visit to Colonial Beach. This team is responsible for updating the Virginia Tourism Corporation's website and locality information. So it's really important that they get introduced to what we have going on so that they can help us get the word out. And a special thank you to David and Missoon with the Plaza B&B, Kathy Bachman with the EDC committee, and Kelly Woods Vaughn with Riverview Inn, and the volunteers at Monroe's Birthplace for helping making that day a success. We want to congratulate the Fire Escape Restaurant, which celebrated its first year anniversary on June 15th. And congratulations to Grandpa Hawaii Shaved Ice, which is now at their new location on the Vendor Court on Washington Avenue. Stay tuned, there's additional businesses opening and reopenings coming soon, as well as some other anniversaries. Next up might be including Love Bites, which is on Washington Avenue, or Colonial Avenue, expecting in July. So, and that's all I have on EDC. Ready to go forward to our utility reports and contractor update. Welcome.
Hello again. Can everybody hear me? I know this thing doesn't work well for me. Let's go ahead and start off on the next page. May was a pretty good month for us at the plant. You know, most everything went pretty well. We've got operations pretty streamlined, still training the operators on different processes, still working with Chris and his team has definitely been busy over there this month. So, let's see, this month, if you see there, you know, average flow, 540,000 gallons. That's a drop from the previous months. If you scroll down there just a little bit, you can kind of compare the months to other months. You know, March being the highest on record, April and May, it just keeps going down. So what that indicates is we're getting now more into real flow without the I from, you know, being so much rain, so wet. What that's also done is give us the opportunity of changing some processes. We're not always in, you know, retain air off to retain solids. So we've been able to run the plant more. We've been breaking up more of the solids that's been in the facility for years, trying to process that out. That also has led, if you go down to the next page, you know, all of our parameters for the month passed except for ammonia. When we were breaking up that sludge, it did release a high concentration of ammonia that had been in the plant. It wasn't a real big exceedance, but if you see there, the weekly average is, 1.62, the monthly average permitted is 1.19. So the monthly average we did busted at 1.5, and then 1 week was 1.8 average, and the other 2.5. So not a huge exceedance, but nonetheless, it was an exceedance. And what we did there is we backed off on, trying to break up the sludge. We increased the pressing operations to get rid of what we did break up. We've increased our air. I've been working with Chris to get one of the other clarifiers, or the other clarifier, back online to give us the ability to retain more solids. It's a lot of moving pieces over there with a lot of failed equipment that we're bringing back online, repairing a little bit at a time as parts come in and as time's available. Chris and his team also came over, cleaned out one of the contact tanks, the ones who had visited the facility. Remember the algae and the growth that was on the wall in that final tank where the clear water was. So they were able to come over, switch that flow over to the tank that was empty, clean out the one that was in use, and then we put the flow back to that tank. So that was a huge improvement. Where the water was already very clear, it's even clearer now. So you can see the bottom of the tank completely. They had some other items. They had a mixer failure in one of the soda ash pumps, and that's one of the items that hasn't been used at the facility for a very long time. We put it back online. We now know why they quit using it, because it had failed. So Chris is looking at a solution to put that back on permanently. Nothing major. We did have the power outage that everybody remembers at the beginning of the month. That was a little bit of a hiccup with the generator switching over. Chris also had the manufacturer representative come to the facility, fix that problem. So everything's going real well. As we identify issues, we just continue to fix them and move on. So we're pretty satisfied with what's happening there. You can scroll on down through the report. It's really a lot of the same. Everything is well within the permitted limits. Intercock, fecal coliform, those are the things that everybody wants to keep an eye on going to the river, especially through the holiday when people are swimming. We have some ups and downs there when your flow changes, but most all of it is very well within where it needs to be. What you see here is your total nitrogen, and that's one of the things that from your WQIF grant that you had gotten years ago to upgrade the facility. These are the things that they monitor to keep in compliance because of that grant. Yearly average, so every month at the end of the year, you need it to be below a 3.0. Where you see the higher numbers there, 4.38 for this month, that really comes back down to the chemical usage. And that's what we were talking about last month, with the budget and everything, that as we go through these processes, this here, the way you solve that is more chemical. And you denitrify the phosphorus removal and everything. So the denitrification process there is still something that we're working on because of the accumulation of solids in the anoxic tank. So it really comes down to getting rid of all that old sludge, and we're working it through as fast as we can. When we speed up, go too fast, we see what that causes, so we have to slow back down. We did have a team come from Texas to look at the sludge press that's over there. That thing is it's antiquated. The company's not even in service anymore. We did find someone who was able to maintenance it. They have access to parts, used parts, a lot of different resources. He came up, evaluated it. We did get an estimate back from them that we're finishing up. They've requested a down payment that I'll have to discuss with Chris and Natasha. I've got that information this morning. So we're moving forward, and it really comes down to we have a better idea than what we've talked about before, where that recent estimate you had to remove it for over $1 million. We're not going to do that, obviously, but it is going to require getting that press fixed. So refurbishing the press is a must, especially if you want to save that $1 million. And that's really all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Wood?
So as you said, any exceedance is not a good exceedance. And in order to avoid the ammonia exceedance in the future, you had mentioned that we're going to have to slow down the processing of the sludge. That's part of what that press is for, right?
Absolutely. And there's no way to really control what's built up in that sludge, what's harboring in there. When you break it up, what's in it's going to come out. And what we do is process control testing, and when we see the elevated numbers, then we have to make adjustments as we go. But the thing of it is we have to get the sludge out of there. You know, the level didn't get real high, it does exceed, but it's nothing to be concerned with, and it's something quite honestly that us and DEQ is expecting. You know, and that's why they keep asking, you know, when will it be before we become into sustained compliance? It's because they know as we work through these things, this is gonna happen. So it's just one of those things that was unfortunate, and we just need to find a different way to get the solids out of there without stirring it up as much.
And then the last question, our relationship with DEQ, how would you describe that?
That's much better than what it was. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with where we are. I know Natasha and Pal, everybody's pretty satisfied with where we are there. And once everything with the consent order all goes out for public comment, I think everybody get a better idea of where you stand.
And that will be July 1st, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams?
Yeah, I'm not sure this is really a question for Bowden, but it is probably an appropriate time to ask, or at least if we can't get an answer today, maybe we can get an answer at the next meeting. I think a month or two ago, council expressed concerns and interest over addressing the influent inundation issues or infiltration issues that have been brought up over the last couple of years. And we were told that that was being worked on and in progress. Any of the stuff the low hanging fruit stuff that can be addressed like immediately, or smoke testing, stuff like that. Now, can we get an update on that, or can we have that scheduled for our next work session so that council's up to speed and ensure we don't miss anything or drop the ball on any of this?
I don't mind giving a quick update on that. You know, that's something that we've definitely not backed off on. We've had discussions with, an engineering firm, as well as John, Natasha, myself, Chris. Chris and I have even gone around looking at different lift stations, different manholes, different areas that we believe could, influence the I&I. And what we're trying to do is narrow that down just a little bit more, and then we start focusing on those areas that we've identified are worse than others. Because as you know, they did the I&I study. It didn't go so far, and we believe that we can kind of hone in, take the information they provided, hone in on the areas that we need to focus on smoke testing and camera. Because what we don't want to do is continue to waste time. If we just go out here all willy-nilly and start, doing the smoking and camera, we could be skipping right around the problem areas when we can, do a little bit of legwork now and just dive right into where, it's really gonna matter. Does that answer your question?
So we're talking maybe next month or two before we start getting into, say, smoke testing and stuff?
I'd say probably in the next, 60 days, and that's also gonna be something that's gonna be tied up into the consent order as well, so we have to stay focused on that, and it's just a matter of going about it a little bit different way without spending so much money, quite honestly, and what we're gonna do is gonna be effective.
Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Sullivan?
It's been a long time since I had my marine chemistry course, but I know it's a very complex and complicated nitrogen cycle, nitrification, denitrification, and the resulting ammonia. Is there anything that can be added to the process that could help reduce the ammonia that's released when you're breaking up the solids?
The only thing that really is gonna help there is alkalinity, and part of the nitrification process requires alkalinity. Another thing that we've started doing is adding soda ash instead of lime. That has also helped us in being able to retain nitrification. But the problem is the plant is only gonna treat the so much no matter what you do. It's only designed to do so much. Your typical influent stream is gonna be between 20, 40 milligrams per liter of ammonia. And when you release what's in there now, you're looking at well over 200. So you do the best you can, you hit it with as much oxygen and alkalinity as you can hit it with, and then you have to just slow down what you're doing. So there will be other instances where when we break into some of those solids that's harboring more than others, we'll see an elevation, but it's not like it's a real big, elevation to where it's really a concern, but it's something that we have to monitor closely and adjust our process on what we see happening. So it's very much a work in motion,
All I just want to note that as we move forward into the areas of concern that are out in the community, that we give ample and good communication to the residents that affects. I know when you do anything from road work, construction, but specifically smoke testing, it often alarms people who don't understand why smoke might be coming up out of their gutter. And so just make sure to coordinate that kind of work with the fire department and with the people necessary, because they'll probably end up getting phone calls, and I see Chief Roby back there nodding his head, so.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that's gonna be very alarming if you know smoke coming out of your toilet.
Yeah.
or something like that.
So let's just make sure we give good communication.
Yeah, we'll all get together and make sure we have a good process for that.
Thank you. Okay, any further questions? Okay, thank you very much. All right, next is a very special moment in our agenda. I see you dressed up for us. Very nice.
I figured it was worth it.
It is worth it. It is worth it. We're recognizing tonight the work and public service of an employee who's been with us for 20 years, although he doesn't look a day older than 25.
That's what I said.
Uh-huh. Adam is a very valued member of the team at, in the finance department in Colonial Beach. He has worked his way up through the ranks here. He has stayed committed and is also, has family ties and stays local. So we appreciate you very much as a long-term employee of the town, but your continued resilience, your continued effort, and your continued growth as a person, but professionally, and in your life. And we just support you very much, Adam. I'm very proud to give this certificate for 20 years of service along with our little gift bag. So if you'll come up, we'll do a picture. Get all that.
Where am I going?
You want me to come around? Just for a little added talk about Adam. Adam is the employee that I get the most complaints about because he is a tax man, but also the employee I get the most really genuine compliments about as well. And if you've ever needed help or had an issue at the desk in finance, I just say that Adam, you have treated people fairly, and that I appreciate your knowledge there and all the ways you train the other people in finance too, to help people in our town. So thank you. So I heard him say yes, 20 more, right, Adam?
Absolutely.
Okay. Next up on our agenda is Westmoreland County Board of Supervisors, Mr. Trivett. Mr. Trivett, you have kept me very busy, come on up. Very busy lately. A lot of missed nights with my kid to attend the board meetings, not you personally, I'm just saying.
I'm glad you clarified it was board meetings.
The board meetings,
You know
yeah,
how rumors go.
okay,
Madam Mayor, Town Council,
welcome.
thank you. First of all, I'd like to tell you that ride show on Father's Day was unbelievable. The best I've ever seen it attended, the most vehicles, I think, 300 plus. Then Juneteenth was fantastic. It was well organized and put on. I want to commend our police chief. He's done an outstanding job. I've heard so many compliments about his leadership, what he's doing with that department. There's no doubt about anybody that's out in the public is seeing the officers out and about more than I can remember seeing them in quite some time, other than being on 205, which we all know, but they're not out there like they were. They're out here in the community and on the boardwalk and in town. And I just want to commend the chief for doing a good job and for being out there where the public sees him and they know who he is. Thank you, Chief. I want to talk about the budget a little bit, that 4-month nightmare that we shared a lot of conversations about, Madam Mayor. You know, it's been difficult without a doubt. There was a 6-cent increase, so the rate for property tax will go from 62 to 68 cents. 26 cents goes to Westmoreland Schools, 42 cents to the tax rate. Colonial Beach only shares a burden of 2 cents of that. So, because we don't pay for Westmoreland Schools. So, and I've seen some comments out there on social media about we saved $3.8 million. I don't know how we did that because I don't know, we didn't have that $3.8 million that I'm aware of. But either way, I don't think that all the needs were met. Obviously, when all the departments came forward and the constitutional officers, we're about 7% behind in salaries for county employees. I was glad to see that the budget included not only the 3 cent, but 3%, but 2% more to try to catch up some with that. The sheriff got his 2 SRO positions, which he got a grant for, so the county and the school will split the difference with that. The fire department's got $75,000. Chief Balderson, Chief Roby gave a presentation where they were about $200,000 behind. So that's a positive there that we're trying to make that up. The squad money had been removed, placed back in the budget. But I was very concerned about a comment that was made at that meeting because I really tried to stress that in the past we have seen where we had the revenue and we voted on the revenue, but somehow or another the expenditure for certain things didn't get voted on. And the example I use is when the sheriff was given 2 positions, 2 deputy positions, and he kept asking where his funding was for it, and he was told it was never appropriated. So when I made that issue at this last meeting, somebody made the comments about just because the revenue is there and it's been approved through the expenditures doesn't mean they're going to get it. So that concerns me, and because I've seen that happen in the past. So I would just say for those that have gotten funding, keep a watch on it because, there was some statements made and I won't go into that. You go back and watch the meeting. It's online. You can hear for yourself what was said, but I would be concerned about it. We had a great agreement that we spent hours working on between the Columbia Beach Volunteer Rescue Squad and County EMS. Currently, that is still in place. I hope it'll stay in place, but that's something that I can't see in the future right now. I don't know where that's going to be, but I'm just hoping that the need, that people will see the need for that. It's worked very well. I've talked to Chief Blake, I've talked to Chief Holden and Olive, and it's been a smooth transition, seamless. So let's hope that will stay like it is. It's been an asset to the town because it's greatly reduced the town response time from a unit having to come from Oak Grove. So right now the commitment is there for 24/7 coverage in the town, and let's just hope that continues to last. But if I hear anything different than that, I'll be the first to let you know. We have a position there for Economic Development Director. I hope that position is filled. We will see. Time will tell whether somebody's hired for that position, but it's absolutely critical. No doubt about it. We've got to get some development in this county. Colonial Beach is leading the way. It's done an outstanding job of bringing new businesses and housing and things to this town, and the county could really learn from that. You've set a good example, and I hope that will be followed by the county as well, because we really need that. I saw where, I didn't attend the ribbon cutting, but Carry On Trailer did over a $9 million addition to that business down there, which is very good for our county as well. And I'm glad to see that because they've been a long time employer in the county, and they're gonna increase about 60 employees there in welding and painting and other things, so that should be a good thing for our county as well. Any questions or anything I might have forgot that you might be aware of, or?
Dr. Salzala?
Can you tell us who our county administrator or acting county administrator is and what the status is on that position?
Currently, it was Ms. Whaley who was the finance director, and she was appointed as, she sent us an email after the meeting the other night that she was retiring effective June 30th. So at this point in time, there hasn't been any discussion among the board members about who's going to replace her. So I'm not sure. We advertised the job for a new county administrator. Last I heard, we had 2 applicants. So, that's not surprising. I'm surprised that we had any, to be honest with you, what's been going on for the last couple of months. So I just can hope that maybe, we'll get through all this process.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Dr. Mitchell, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Madam Mayor, Town Council members, Chief, thank you for having me. Before I start with the presentation, I'm gonna give some flowers to Karen, Dr. Sullivan for an outstanding, and everyone else involved in the process on an outstanding Juneteenth celebration. I went to several celebrations this year throughout last weekend in Spotsylvania, Stafford, and Prince William. And I gotta tell you, nothing topped what I saw yesterday. I know we were laughing at it. And I asked the question, where did you get all of those people and performers from? That was a question I had, all the way from Petersburg to the beach to perform. That was amazing. So thank you for your time.
That was Dr. Cunningham.
Yes, okay. Well, that was pretty impressive. So thank you for your time in putting that together. Very, very proud woman. And of course, to the town manager yesterday, on stage, talking about the history of stepping. So we thank you for sharing that. Over the last couple of weeks since our last meeting, we've gotten a lot of different phone calls to the board office. We've even had people stop by and ask questions. We've got emails, people stopping in the street. Because somehow, some way, there seems to be some miscommunication or confusion. Maybe for some, so I'm going to try my best in my presentation just to kind of touch base on a couple of quick things. If you go to the next slide, the biggest thing I've been getting comments and issues about is how many out-of-town students that we have. And we have about 177 broken down. I think we have 74 at the high school, and the rest is elementary. So that's about, when you look at our total population, 403 kids from our town. Now, what I'm going to say is that at our elementary capacity, we probably can fit 403 kids. So without the town students, we have a building, a high school, that's sit here, pretty much going to be unoccupied. So I think when people start talking about out-of-town students and whether or not we should accept or not accept, the reality is that they're part of our division, they're part of the school's history, and most importantly, it creates a lot of problems for us. One, you have a vacant building. One, you probably gonna have to second create probably a pre-K-12 school. And lastly, in terms of cost, probably a third of the staff will need to be let go. So that's the implication. So when we talk about, for people in the audience and online, those are the implications that we're talking about. If you go to the next slide. So we always talk about the LCI, and I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but the bottom line is that it has gone up. You heard Mr. Trivette talk about it tonight, about the growth in the town. It's attributed to the rising cost of the LCI. It's just what it is. Next slide, please. And so how we calculate it, and I put this back because I think it's important for everyone to understand that a big part of it, 50% of it, is really about real property value, and really looking at adjusted gross income. And then when you add the tax rate, you divide it by the ADM, and that's how you get the LCI. So we don't really have a lot of control over that. It's just what it is. I said last time, it creates a nice story because it shows the growth of the town, which then creates the increase of the LCI. Next slide, please. I mentioned last time, as you can see, both Colonial Beach and Westmoreland County. So it's not just us. We are in the school division that had one of the highest increases, over 2 points across the state. And that's a good thing. And I know sometimes when it comes to budget season, it may not necessarily look like a good thing. Next slide. So with that, I keep getting all these calls about tuition, and why is it that we don't charge kids tuition? And why is it that the division did away with tuition, which was done prior to me? But here's the reality. The math is the math. If you take 177 kids, you tax it by $1,000 for tuition, it's an additional revenue to the district of $177,000. Here's the problem. The problem is we can't collect it if people don't pay it. I could hold their report cards back in the day, now I can't. I'm not a credit agency. I can't put it on their credit report. So essentially, when we talk about the math, we got to make sure the math matches. On the next slide. So here's the math. So the state gives an allocation. Per pupil allocation, 11,507. And then the local side is 5,742. When the allocation is about 17,250. So if you take the 177, you times it by 11,000, the state share is about 2 million. The local share about 1 million. The total local match is 3.24, and the difference is about 2,228,61.89. Here's the thing. On the next slide, please. So why would I make a decision to hone on $177,000 for the purposes of 177 kids? When in reality, if you go to the next slide, I'm sorry, go back a little bit. In reality, that is going from an ADM per pupil allocation of 17 to really 16,000. So if you look at 16,000 per pupil, 1,000 for tuition, the reality is the math doesn't add up right. So the math is the math is the math. So it's not really beneficial on any circumstances to look at $1,000 for tuition when it's difficult to collect it. When if I lose that student, I lose $17,000. So we talk about 16,000. So the math doesn't math. Anyway, on the last slide, next slide, despite all of those challenges, it's what we do. And I'm very thankful to the town manager, the mayor, even when the budget had passed and there might have been a little bit of an increased overage, they allowed us to keep it. But here's the thing. Despite all of those challenges, we are part of a consortium of about 65 schools in the state of Virginia, 65 out of 131 in the state, 65. And out of the 65 divisions in the consortium, we had the highest growth at 9.75 pass rate, or 23% pass rate from 22-23 school year to the 23-24 school year when you combine all tests together. The highest out of the 65 schools in the consortium. Out of the 423 schools in the consortium, our high school had the fourth highest growth at 15.89%, or pass rate of 17.1% on all combined tests from last year to this year. So when we talk about public education, that is the reason why we do the work. So the funding that is passed through this council, what is the local share, the state share, goes to support what we do in the school. And those are the dividends from last year to this year. Last slide, and I'm almost done. There were some questions that came to us about last time I presented pertaining to staff receiving bonuses. That is correct, but it's outlined in our ESSA grant. We don't use local funds nor state funds. It is grant funds that are allowed, and I took a screenshot so you could see the submission process and the way in which it is approved by VDOE under the objective codes. What is the high school generator? What is the outdoor classroom? What is the staff supplement? All purchasing a graduation stage this year, all of that was paid through CARES funding. And when it's submitted, the last person to submit and approve is Ms. Harriet Dawson from VDOE. So we do not use funds from the local government to pay and provide bonuses to staff. Those are all grant funded. So with that being said, that concludes my report. Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, Ms. Brown?
I have two questions, and I'm not sure if it would be for you, Dr. Mitchell, or maybe for Town Manager Natasha, or maybe even our CFO. So we have roughly 32% of our student population is from Westmoreland County. Does Westmoreland County allot us any money for those students if we're teaching those students, or they're basically on our budget? So we're paying for 32% of our school budget is going towards county students that are not residents of the town.
Well, I would flip it and say,
I'm just asking, is that a true statement? Is Westmoreland County not giving us any?
we don't get
funds?
we don't get funding from Westmoreland County. Our funding strictly comes from our local government and the state. So we don't get it. So because we are an independent school district, we are one of only two in the state of Virginia, along with West Point, that have its own school district. Based on the LCI for the town, that's how we are funded. The county overall don't provide us funding. They get their own funding based on their own LCI from their local government and the state.
Does West Point have tuition?
West Point have tuition? I'm not so sure they do or not. I don't believe so. They may, but I'm not so sure.
Dr. Mitchell, just to
Yes.
clarify, that money that comes to us instead of going to the Westmoreland County School budget.
That's correct, because they get funded based on their per pupil, their ADM. So if they have 20,000 kids or 10 kids, they get funded for that amount. The same thing with us. So it doesn't really matter whether we are a town within the larger county district. The reality is that you get funded by the number of heads when the county is taken twice a year.
And has our number of Westmoreland County students increased over the years, or is that a decrease, or is it about the same? 32% now. Have you seen that rise?
There's been a slight rise, but not drastic. But at the same time, they probably have maybe, anyway, give or take about 40, 45 students of ours who live in our district, but they move because we may not offer some of the things that they want, particularly sometimes with sports. We don't offer soccer. Some kids want to play soccer. I see you in the back. And therefore, they make the decision. It's one of our parents. He has 2 kids at our elementary school. Yes? Yes. But his oldest children are at Westmoreland because they're going in for soccer. So parents have choice, and choice is a good thing. But for academics, in some cases, parents make choice to be here. So sometimes it's for sports, but essentially it's really based on the LCI by the head. A great question.
Do Colonial Beach residents that go to Westmoreland County schools have to pay them tuition?
We don't pay tuition to them. Because essentially what happens is it's nice to get tuition. The problem is collecting it. And the dollar amount, the math just doesn't math big picture wise when you compare the per pupil allocation to $1,000 tuition.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you.
Dr. Mitchell, did you make your announcement here that, I don't think you've made an announcement here to town council that you.
I did it for,
You made
About the
yesterday,
school
you
board.
made it.
oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I made it yesterday, so, but thank you. For the audience and those on television at home, live streaming, Mr. Tim Trevette made a recommendation and proposed the school board renamed the school board office after one of our own, who was the first and only African-American mayor in Colonial Beach, Mr. Charles Garland. And the school board approved that at the last meeting, and yesterday I made the announcement that we will be naming and recognizing the legacy of former Mayor Garland. And I will be working with several folks in the district to, one, have a dedication ceremony, the sign, and also try to track the family to invite them as part of the process and look at the historical artifacts, which I'm going to probably have to pick your brain from our conversation yesterday with regards to the notes from Mr. Garland when he was mayor, but to put some historical artifacts in that building to represent his legacy in Colonial Beach. But thank you for reminding me that. I know I made the announcement yesterday. I feel like this is my third time making it, but yes, thank you for doing that.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
All right, next up is public comment. This is general public comment. Can you on anything?
Sherry Hutchins.
Okay, and I know, Sherry, you already know how this works, but please state your name and address for the record, and there's a 5-minute. Thank you very much.
Sherry Hutchins, 1205 Monroe Bay Ave. Good evening. I have more questions than anything else, and I know you won't answer them, but maybe you all can think about these things and get back to people. Number one was social media and this whole thing about trailers and RVs and all that other stuff. I guess my question is, do we have a zoning administrator that attends meetings here so he can clarify some of the ordinances or whatever, so people don't get so angry and frustrated on social media? That's one thing. And then, do we have a compliance officer? We truly miss Teresa. She did a great job for the little money she made, but there are a lot of issues in this town with roofs falling in, wild animals living in houses, grass that's above people's knees. I mean, it's just like, it's just ridiculous. So it's like, and then again, people living in trailers behind their house so they can Airbnb their house out. I don't think we can do that in this town. There's quite a few people that are living in their trailer where work is being done on their house. It's just, where is the compliance being done in this town? Also, do you have to have a license to drive a golf cart? Okay, because I see a lot of, I passed one the other day, a little kid could hardly even see over the steering wheel because he's trying to reach the gas pedal. Dad is sitting in the front seat with him, but I think the kid has to have a learner's permit at least. So, and I've seen some other teenagers, young teenagers, I don't think they have a license. So that's another thing. And I wouldn't mind if the police officers just once in a while just stop and say, hey, let me see your license, you know. You didn't break any rules as of yet, but I think that needs to be looked at. The police have been more visible, and I appreciate that. But I also would like them, before something happens, as they're doing their tours around Colonial Beach or Monroe Bay or Irving, people are not walking on the correct side of the street, and someone is going to get hit eventually. It would just be nice if the police officer just stopped and said, hey, for your own safety, you really should be walking on the other side of the road. They have their dogs out in the middle of the road. They're walking in the middle of the road. Some of them won't move over. There's cars coming at them and cars coming up behind them. It's a safety issue. So I'd like to see that done. And also bikes zooming down the boardwalk and even down the town pier, because I don't think they're allowed down the town pier. And I know that I was up there in town sitting out, and I must have seen 5 dogs on the beach and 3 or 4 bicycle people running, zooming up and down the boardwalk. I don't know if we can have volunteers come out and patrol like you all used to do before. I'm not really sure, but it was a busy day and there were a lot of people walking and the bikes were zooming in and around them. So that's all I have. Thanks.
There's nobody Is else that- signed up, but I have 4 email.
Okay. Anybody else in the audience at this time? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and do the email comments then. Thank you.
Okay, the first one is from Miss Kelly Woods Vaughn. Says, this town continues to grow and evolve. We have new homes being built, new businesses being opened, and more people discovering our incredible small town. Around the months of March, April, to provide the best services and experience we can offer so that everyone wants to come back and shares the wonderful things we have to offer. We are dependent on weather, timing of holidays, school days, and the economy, which will impact our tourism season. For lodging, looking at our bookings and following the travel trends, we do our best to forecast our season. We look at hiring and how we can make the most of our season. Our restaurants are doing the same. They are creating the best menus, looking at hiring as the number of people increases from locals to tourists. We ask ourselves every year, how do we increase tourism and how do we bring business tourism year round? Basing numbers on the prior season is not equitable, as these numbers are unpredictable from year to year, season to season. We adapt. Every business in town and those business owners who live in town are paying higher water and sewer, property taxes, mortgages, rent, and all the other taxes and fees that are associated with owning the brick and mortar. Employee salaries, associated tax, health insurance, workers' comp, property insurance, liability insurance, sales tax, state and local. Increasing the meals and lodging tax sends a message to all these businesses here in town, which is not a positive. It also shows that we are not a business-friendly town. It will also affect those visiting town, as was posted on Facebook. That's not just one loss, that's multiple. Please rethink this increase and create the friendly business environment as promoted. Next one is from Mr. Joe Kelly. I see that town staff and council still want to fund the increased school costs through tax increases on local businesses. These taxes are principally paid by tourists, visitors, and weekend homeowners that have no connection to the CV schools. This budget shortfall is the responsibility of every resident of CV. I get it, tourists, visitors, and weekenders don't vote here, so it's easier to stick this group with the bill rather than cut expenses or, dare we say, increase the real estate taxes. Today I saw an invoice for a local restaurant and taxes were 16% of the bill and a credit card fee of 3%. If you add these 2 items plus a tax increase and a reasonable tip, the cost of a meal is the menu price for your food plus 40%. This restructure is no way to build repeat business and support our local workers and businesses. Please don't balance the town's budget on the back of local businesses. I recommend that council send a business-friendly message and not increase these taxes. Please remember that businesses also pay real estate taxes just like everyone else. Thanks for your consideration. Third one is from Ms. Paige Williams. Greetings, Town Council. Congratulations for holding a special meeting that Mr. Williams made a motion to make it happen and to address budget cuts. However, it is not enough. More should be cut and it can be done, so let's stop pretending it can't be done. The majority of this council and staff have a spending problem and it needs to stop. Congratulations to Councilman Williams, Councilwoman Sullivan, for voting to send the budget back to the town manager for more cuts. I am disappointed with Wood, Roberson, Allison, Brown, and Schick for not supporting this motion.
My suggestion would be for council to have another budget cut meeting. You have time and stay there till the wee hours if you must. You signed up for this and you work for citizens, remember. A lot more should be cut from planning and the other areas too. Again, please take some money to get a secretary to answer the phones. If you cannot afford it, try to get a volunteer to do it. Again, it is very unprofessional and really upsets people when they get no answer after calling over and over. Thank you for your service. Thank you for listening. Please do the right thing. And then the fourth one is from Ms. Kathy Bachman. Dear town leadership, I have looked through the historical numbers and see a trend in the past 3 years that is resulting in an expense problem that is outpacing the growth in revenues. We are increasing revenues from an increased number of new homes and home values along with increases in visitor revenue contribution. This new budget has us spending more than we make. We see it in the growing investment in the schools to include state standards and a growing administrative cost. This cost growth is not unique to the schools, it is also in the town administration, along with the cost of labor increasing and wages and benefits. We need to step back and take a look at how we operate going forward. First step, we are a small town. How can we further collaborate with the county as we did with the building inspections and now the EMTs? Not only to bring our expenses in line, but also improve our services. I would start with zoning, which needs to collaborate with buildings, maybe not eliminate, but scale back and collaborate with the county. I ask that the town council says to town administration, we will invest this much of the taxpayers and business owners' monies at a level that doesn't increase existing revenue streams. The admin, without more consulting fees, can look at ways to improve their impact and services to our community. I have given several recommendations in the past with no response. If we keep spending without an eye to the future, we are doomed. Thanks for your leadership of our small town.
Thank you. All right, with that, we're gonna close public comment at 7:16 p.m. And before we move into unfinished business, which starts off with the lodging and meals tax, I think, Paolo, you wanted to clarify some of the concerns you had.
Thank you. Put together a memo today for council members and attached some code sections to it. It addressed several issues. The first is time that the budget has to be passed and the content of the budget. The governing body shall approve the budget and fix the tax rate for the budget year no later than the date on which the fiscal year begins. So that's by June 30th. This is non-discretionary. It's a core obligation of governing bodies in Virginia. The budget shall contain a complete itemized and classified plan of all contemplated expenditures and all estimated revenues, which is one reason I like to do the revenues before the budget, because you need that first. The tax increases that you can consider is too late to consider anything other than meals and lodging, because you have to advertise for a public hearing. You cannot pass a budget. The public hearing has to be at least 7 days prior to the approval of the budget. So there just is not time to consider any other sources of revenue. The required vote, and usually in Virginia you have a majority vote required, and that appears to be so for the budget itself. But in Virginia, for taxes, I'll read precisely from the code, in towns, no tax shall be imposed except by a 2/3 vote of council members, which means that you have to have 5 members vote for an increase in taxes. Failure to pass a budget, of course, you're required to do it. It's a core function. I didn't find a whole lot on this, but under the section dealing with the budget, referenced a 2011 opinion of the Attorney General, which concerns the county and a constitutional office of the clerk of the court. There, the Attorney General opined that the clerk of the court can close the office when a county has failed to adopt a budget and the clerk cannot pay his employees. So if you fail to adopt a budget, fail to appropriate funds, that could be a possible consequence. I don't know how you're going to continue operating. And this doesn't specifically apply to towns, but I think you can see also they gave you an article on Hopewell. Here there's talk about the legislature getting involved and basically controlling their finances. That bill failed, but it shows that's a possibility out there. Then, of course, this is non-legal, but there are other possible consequences. That it could affect our town's bond rating. The town could have less ability to borrow and higher interest rates for the borrower than it could have. Not to mention the unfavorable perception across the locality and in the Commonwealth. And just, I'm going to touch briefly, I think Natasha and Lisa are going to go into this more, but there's a lot of falsehoods out there on social media. One is that restaurants are required to collect both transient lodging and meal snacks. So people are putting out there that they are required, when you buy a meal in town, to collect lodging tax. That makes no sense. And there's also the misconception that this is a tax on businesses. It's really a tax that business collect from customers and that they're required to pay to the town. So it's not a direct tax on businesses. So that's all I have, the key points. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I didn't hear, did you mention anything about like a continuing resolution type deal? Like I've heard in previous, in past councils years back, if they didn't have an agreed budget, they continued with the previous year's spending until they came up with a budget.
I suppose that could be a possibility, but I mean, you're supposed to have a budget that matches expenditures and revenue. So.
Thank you.
And in my years in government, which was 10 years before I came here, I haven't seen a locality, at least a local one, Warrenton or here, fail to pass the budget.
Okay, we want to go into Natasha. Lisa, do you have anything to add before we move forward?
I just want to reiterate from Powell's statement that the taxes that the town sets are lodging taxes, and that's only for hotels, motels, Airbnbs, etc. And meals taxes are from restaurants only. There is no reason why restaurants should charge a lodging tax. That isn't something that we tell restaurants that they must charge, or that they have to charge. That certainly isn't coming from the town at all. So those are the only two taxes that come from the town. The sales tax that's set by the state, food tax that's set by the state as well.
Yes, Mr. Wood, I want to make sure we're moving to the next item, right? Are you going to read us into the actual rate? Okay.
So at the last meeting, special meeting, we were asked to do several things and come back with a balanced budget at the lowest possible tax increase. The cuts that we were asked to make, the additional cuts that we were asked to make, was to cut the planning budget by an additional $50,000, to cut the facade grant from economic development by $20,000, of course, cut the interim assistant town manager position when a full-time assistant town manager is hired. Combine the assistant town manager position with the grants compliance. Cut contract services by an additional 10% where contractual obligations were not being hindered. Reduce the spotted MP contracts by down to $20,000. Cut the SDI contracts by $4,000. Cut building and grounds crew person from parks. And as I stated, to provide a balanced budget, which includes all of the reductions discussed at the lowest possible tax increase. So what Lisa and I have done is we went through and we made the cuts that were suggested. We received some additional revenue as of end of May, which we were not able to address in the previous budgets simply because of the timing of when we get those fundings. And so we made the adjustments accordingly related to that. And what we were able to do is come back with a proposed increase of 1% in meals and 1% in meals, lodging, and cottage. Now that does bring us a balanced budget, but it does not leave us with any sort of surplus at all. So that would mean that we would be operating really very, very tight. And if we were to have any unexpected costs that would incur, if we didn't have the funds in reserves or somewhere else like that, that means we wouldn't be able to address any of those needs. And so to go into just the particulars of what we did, Lisa could go more in depth with that for you, and then we'll answer questions at the end.
So since we're, have another couple of months, data for fiscal year '24, and we needed to find quite a bit of money to balance this budget, I decided to first look at the revenue. I already knew I had some surplus for fiscal '24 that we weren't anticipating. So I went back and I looked at some revenue line items, particularly our interest on our sweep account. We've made strides with using the service for tax on real estate delinquents. So I was able to look at that. We're planning on adding personal property to delinquents to the tax service also to increase that. So I kind of went through the revenue and I was able to find approximately $65,000 that I could increase various line items in the revenue. So that helped lower that deficit that we had between revenue and expenditures. And then, of course, I made all the cuts that you had recommended, you asked us to do. I did find some other items that I was able to cut that we hadn't discussed. Just small things that we could do without next year, not a lot of money. But that took us to a balanced budget with only a 1% increase to meals and lodging. Do you have any other questions?
Okay. Are there any questions? Do we want to put a motion on the floor, then open it up for discussion? Yes, Dr. Sullivan.
So what does the 1% to meals and lodging equate to in dollars?
think we roughly said it was about $200,000 at the last meeting,
It's probably 198.
somewhere around there.
Right.
Okay. We have a motion for a discussion, or are we still more? Yes, Mr. Wood.
I think it's important that we take a look, we've gone through this process. We've heard our town attorney tell us that we shall pass.
Can't hear you.
We've gone through this process for approximately 5 weeks now. We've had our town attorney tell us that we shall pass a budget, not that we may pass the budget, so that would seem to negate the idea of a continuing resolution. Plus the idea of a continuing resolution, problem with playing Russian roulette with the budget is eventually you lose. We have expenses that we have to meet. We have not done proper maintenance on our wastewater treatment plant. That's one of the reasons that we got into the situation that we're in. In my opinion, we cut it further than we should, but we had a 3-hour discussion among us. And we talked about.
In public, I just want to make
In
sure
public,
that's clear.
and we had the discussion, and so everybody had the opportunity to say what they would cut. Okay, it's time to get past magical thinking now. Okay, if we profess that we love the institutions in our town, that we support our town staff, that we support our first responders and so forth, in order to do that, we have to fund them. Because if we don't fund them, come July 1, we're risking our bond rating for a dime on a cookie. We're risking our ability to borrow, where we have one of the best borrowing rates available of any municipality in Virginia. Is that a fair statement? And we're
Yes,
going to
sir.
risk all of that for the sake of 10 cents on a cookie. I think it's time that we go ahead and approve this so that we can approve a budget and we can move forward.
Mr. Wood, are you making a motion?
I move that we move to, or I move that we go ahead and vote on this tax
As the 1%,
as the 1%.
as outlined by staff.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna allow some, if there's any further discussion at that point, if not, we'll take a vote. We've had a lot of meetings discussing this. Yes, Mr. Williams?
One question I have is this budget been released to the public? Well, the budget that we're actually going to vote on right now?
No, it's not been released yet to the public.
Okay. I'm a bit concerned about that, I'm not gonna lie. And then just a few other questions.
Just a point of clarification, this is the same budget that we had at the last meeting and the meeting before that and the meeting before that with the
That's
adjustments that we talked about in public
That's
and
correct. So what's not been released to the public is just the.
how the adjustments were made.
Revisions of, revisions, but this budget has already been released. You are
Okay.
correct.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Williams, I just want a point of clarification on that.
Okay, yeah, so I'm not sure when the last copy went out to the public. I think it's been a few weeks at least, correct? I'm just curious. I'm
It's
trying to.
out at the last, whenever that special meeting was.
I think it's been available for about a month in public.
Okay. Let's see, other questions. I do have a question about the trash funds. Are any of the money from the trash fund or in the budget, we have a line item for refuse. And I think it's like 220,000 of the 280-some thousand projected to be collected. This approximately 70K that's over what we're projecting to spend, is that going to be set aside for trash for next year, towards a truck or anything like that? Or is that just, we're just spending those trash funds on general fund items this year?
We've had discussions regarding the trash service. until we have a few years of data. Our intention is to turn it into an enterprise fund when it's appropriate. We'll have a 1 year of data at the end of this fiscal year, which is not going to give us enough information to make sure that it'll be self-sustaining in order to keep up the maintenance, pay the employees, et cetera. So we need a little bit more data before we can actually turn it into an enterprise fund. At this point, it's going to keep operating under the general fund as it has in the past until we can make that move.
Is that part of like state code or something that if you want to set up an enterprise fund, you have to mix them, commingle them with the rest of the general fund until you?
Well, until it's turned into an enterprise fund, it is a general fund expenditure.
And then another question I had was about the, I don't know, it was, the number changed a few times. At one point, it was 195,000 for the purchase of trash cans. Do we have an estimated time when those will go back to the ARPA funds? The 195,000? Or is that gonna-
Not until we have enough data to create an enterprise fund, including that liability to pay back the ARPA funds.
Okay, so the plan is in the future for the ARPA funds to be paid back from general funds into the
No,
ARPA?
it won't be, we will not pay the ARPA funds back until we create the enterprise fund.
Right, that's what I'm saying, but it'll go back to the enterprise fund once it's created.
The ARPA money will be
I wanna make
set
sure
up on a
we're,
schedule to pay back the ARPA funds once we create the enterprise fund.
okay, I wanna make sure we're staying on topic to the, motion. Okay.
I got a few more questions, but if anybody else wants to go on.
Are they, questions, budget questions for the next one, or are they lodging,
Still
meals
budget,
and?
still budget questions.
Okay, Miss, I'm sorry.
Whatever my name is.
I'm so sorry.
That woman's Sarah, sorry.
Miss Brown.
I just kind of,
I just had a brain, I'm so sorry, Miss
No,
Brown.
I just wanted to say that again, and I do follow social media, and I do go out and I hear everyone's complaints. We had several businesses that we met with, all of us. Many businesses were amendable to 1%, and they understood that it may possibly have to be raised. Tonight from constituents that attended the meeting, we heard they love the police, they love the fire parade, they love this. And we love all these things about our town, and we have to fund them. If there are cuts that could have been made, we received this budget in April. Everyone in town had a copy. We've met, council has met, staff are the experts. We are at the end of the line. I agree with, whatever his name now, Councilman Wood.
That's fine.
But I do want to say, Councilman Williams, I do agree with you. I think the meeting we had last week, the special session, was really important because that really brought a lot of transparency to what staff and us as a body are dealing with together. And then again, we heard from constituents tonight saying that they don't like the town phone isn't picked up. They don't like that maybe the trash isn't picked up quick enough. They don't like that there's no compliance officer. Well, guess what? In this budget, we just cut more employees to make this a balanced budget. So we cannot have it all. We can't have our police, our fire, our public works working 24/7, and also have all these other wish list items with cutting more from the budget. I just wanted to put that point out there. So again, I agree with Mr. Wood on this.
Just to clarify, we do have a compliance officer. We call him something else now. What do we call him?
Community Enhancement Officer.
A community enhancement officer. So we have not cut a compliance officer. We just named it different. We also have a zoning administrator. She's on contract because we don't have a full-time zoning administrator. So it's not that we have cut those things.
Well, I blame us as a council, and as a working body, I blame us because I personally have emailed numerous times about animals living in homes and roofs that are caving in, and I get no response from.
Okay, I wanna keep it on the motion as presented, which is 1% on meals and lodging. Are we ready to take a vote on 1% meals and lodging? Are your questions related to the next motion, which is the budget, Mr. Williams, or are they related to the 1% meals and lodging?
Well, I guess they're both, but if you want to hold it to the budget part, that's fine.
Okay, let's go ahead and take a vote. Mr. Wood?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Nay.
Ms. Robertson?
Aye.
Dr. Sullivan?
I took a course last year that said I should always justify the way I vote. And so before I vote, I want to repeat what I said many times. It is inequitable to place the shortfall of our operating budget on a very small group. It should be spread across the entire community. We made a mistake by advertising the tax rate at the current rate. We didn't ever actually discuss that in a meeting. I'm not sure who decided to advertise it at the current rate, but we made that mistake. And we cut ourselves short. So we had no other option. And the only other thing that was advertised at a higher rate was meals and lodging. And I've been told that if we don't pass a budget, we're not in compliance. But I'm not voting on the budget right now. I'm voting on the meals and lodging increase. And I continue to assert that it's inequitable and that it's unpredictable. Therefore, I vote nay.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ellison?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay, we're gonna move forward to the adoption appropriation of the budget as presented by staff, which incorporates the changes as directed by our last budget meeting. Is there a motion to put on the floor and then we'll open up for discussion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all right, it's open for discussion. I think, Mr. Williams, do you have additional questions about the budget?
Yes, thank you. One of my questions was, so I noticed, we got in our last special meeting, we got the list of contract services kind of last minute, so it wasn't very easy to look it over real carefully. But there were a couple of things in there that kind of caught my eye. One of them was mobile license plate reader. At one point, there was a discussion about buying one. It was like $30,000. Council had said that they didn't want it. I may have missed when we voted to actually buy it.
We did not buy that. The mobile unit is the handheld one. The vehicle one is separate. That was what we voted not, or to not vote on it or continue on.
Mobile license plate reader. So that's the handheld one, Chief?
We do have a mobile, vehicle.
Right, and we have obtained that through a grant.
Yeah, that was through a grant.
I was unaware of that.
Okay. And so I noticed in there the contract services, so it's almost $11,000 a year for the actual software, I guess, or the subscription.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Is that subscription tied to our Flowbird stuff? Adam saying yes?
Yes.
Yeah, it goes through that. So
They all work
that's
together.
That's part of the enforcement services.
And then just one other thing I wanted to note, just for the public's awareness, in case they haven't seen it, is we've got $5,500 for a council retreat in here. So, I mean, that to me shows that we really haven't done as deep a cuts as we probably could have. I know we've been told that we've cut to the bare bones and we're putting the town at risk, but I mean, that's just one example to me. I don't see why we couldn't have it in this room, so I'd love to see the public at these meetings, but they're in this little tiny room where nobody can come actually attend unless they squeeze into a corner somewhere. So I would suggest that possibly at some point we consider cutting that $5,500 for council retreats.
That wasn't brought up at the last meeting.
I agree. I was just bringing it to the public's attention, like I said. Thank you. That's all I got.
Why wasn't that line item brought up at the previous meeting, if it's a concern to you now?
Why
Why now?
I don't know if you heard me, Ms. Brown, but I said that we got those figures at the last second, right before the meeting, actually after the meeting started, so we didn't really have a lot of time to really review.
Got it.
You're welcome.
Okay, I have a motion, is that right? Do I have a motion yet? Yes, motion and a second to, vote on the budget as, No? okay, I got a nod.
I would move that we vote on.
I think I did get a motion. It was Mr. Wood and Vicky seconded it.
No, that was the,
No, the ones before that was Mr. Wood and Ms. Brown seconded it.
We have another motion.
I move.
You're correct. It was, he said so moved, she said second.
Okay, thank you. All right. Is there? They were with me. You guys are here, I don't know what you're doing, okay? I was with you. Okay, so, is there any further discussion on the budget? I will tell you that as a line items, as things get adjusted, if we have results where we can reduce that, personally, that strategic action meeting is critical. I don't care if we do it here or there, or whatever. I do think it's nice because it is all day to not sit in these metal chairs and do it, to be honest with you. And I would like everybody alert, awake, engaged, and focused. And so I do want to be able to have it. It's a very important part of the planning for our town every year. I just want to say that. But in any line item that there is savings in, does not mean that that money goes wasted. It means that if we have contingency rollover, if other things happen, like a truck breaks in the middle of the year, we're gonna be scratching at every single penny in this particular budget. We have cut very tight. And those kinds of things, very well, as we experience the year, need to continue to be evaluated. So just make that clear. It's very tight. I'm concerned about that, but I think, we've all tried to sacrifice to make the lowest possible increase, so.
And Madam Mayor, am I correct, or I guess I should ask Ms. Oaks, am I correct in saying that this budget will give each town employee a well-needed raise so we can retain them, morale is increased, and we actually can possibly attempt to become competitive with jurisdictions, and it also gives a six-figure budget to our fire department, is that correct?
Yes, it includes the recommendations made by the Berkeley Group from that salary survey.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, is there any further discussion on the budget? Okay, seeing none, I'm gonna start at the other side this time. Dr. Sullivan?
Again, thank you for the opportunity to justify my vote. While my colleagues have decided to increase the meals and lodging tax, it's now part of the budget proposal. It is my responsibility to ensure that this town continues to operate according to the legislature. Therefore, I will vote yes on the budget.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. Ms. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Allison?
Aye.
Mr. Wood? Okay, that's good. Mr. Williams?
Nay.
Ms. Robertson?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay, moving forward. Next for the public hearing is the conditional use permit. We are holding the public hearing. We will be able to take council action. Is she here? Yes?
No, ma'am, I don't see her.
Okay. All right, I will tell you that if it's just possible to get done in 15 minutes, my child gets out of vacation Bible school at 8 p.m. It is not contingent upon doing that this way, but I am just saying, Mr. Dooley, that we have seen this conditional use permit already, and so we will keep it 3, if that's okay with you.
If the council desires, we can certainly waive the presentation.
Sounds good. Okay. Is anyone here to speak on the conditional use permit application number 24-01? Okay, I'm gonna open this.
Could you just tell us what it is?
Sure, it's the woman who's doing an ADU unit, but it does not meet the size requirements. And so she has requested a conditional use permit. We saw pictures of it last time, the accessory dwelling in the back. It's a full-time rental, it's not an Airbnb. Do you remember this? Okay. Yep,
I just wanted to make sure we.
the public knew what was tracking. Yes. Okay, I have to officially open and close the public hearing. This is part of the process, the government procedure. So I'll open it at 7:48 p.m. Would anybody like to come up and speak to the matter? Okay, seeing none, I will close it at 7:49 p.m. There was no public comment submitted, Heather, is that correct as well?
Nothing.
Okay. Do we have, council action,
I make a motion that we approve resolution 2424, conditional use permit application 2401.
is there a second to that motion? Is there any further discussion on this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Mr. Allison?
So my major concern on this is the access lane for the proposed housing. It's an alleyway, it's not a main road, so there's no, if it snows, it's not gonna be cleared off, it's not gonna have those areas that may be adjusted in case of weather events. If other people are driving on the alleyway and parked behind their yards, they may not have access to their home to get into the driveway. So for me, I think this is gonna be a no, unless there's some way to access it on the main public road, to allow them to have access to the dwelling. An alleyway is not something that I find sufficient to be a, lack of better words, a driveway where other individuals could just do their car in the alleyway and they not have access to it.
Mr. Dooley, do you have any comment to that?
Yes, Madam Mayor and members of council. The driveway off of Mimosa actually is able to serve at least 3 cars off the street. And if we did have a snow event, that additional space that would be required normally for the accessory apartment unit could be accommodated there.
Okay.
I thought, Councilman Allison was gonna touch it, you were so close. What about emergency vehicles getting access to this? If the driveway has vehicles parked in it, are they able to get through the alley?
Well, they would be able to access it off Mimosa, the main street, so staff did not believe that there was any concern for emergency services.
I walked by there today.
Yes. Ms. Robertson?
I walked by there today and looked at it. It's. I walked by it this afternoon and it looked fine to me. I walked partially down the driveway, not so that someone could call and I did not know the driveway. There's so many things that have changed in that neighborhood. I thought we did a good job. That's my opinion.
Yes, Dr. Sullivan?
And I'm sure that most of you know, we have a huge number of non-conforming lots in this town whose driveways are all accessed from the alley behind their house. And those driveways, there are hundreds of people in this town that access their driveway from the alley behind their house. I mean, I don't have to for mine, but I can, and I have a gate back there where I can come in that way if I choose to do so. And three of the other houses on my block are just 25-foot wide lots, and they have to access their driveway from the alleyway. So I don't see a big issue with this.
Okay, Mr. Wood?
The fact that the staff had no objection to it goes a long way with me. And secondly, since it's a full-time rental, we want to have affordable housing in town, and here's a step in the right direction. So I would be a yes for it.
Is there a stipulation that it cannot be used as a short-term rental?
No, ma'am.
Is that a stipulation we could add to the conditional use permit?
The council could, yes.
Do we have that stipulation for any other accessory buildings?
I'm
We
just
can't
bringing it
just
up
do it
as,
to one
I'm not
person.
proposing, I'm just bringing it up as a point. Mr. Williams, you had your hand raised.
I thought during the planning meeting when they discussed this, they said it couldn't be for some reason turned into because they had the same concern.
There's no, from staff's perspective, there's no compelling reason why there would be a concern if it was a short-term rental. It's a matter of access, compatibility. From my perspective or staff's perspective, I don't see why it couldn't be a short-term rental or a long-term rental. There's insufficient access to the property. There's the properties that would accommodate both types of uses. Our STR ordinance does allow for short-term rentals anywhere in the town. If the council feels that prohibiting short-term rentals on this property provides some sort of compelling need to prevent it, then the council can certainly make that motion and add that as a condition of approval.
Okay. I think I must have misunderstood that because I remember that meeting clearly and I thought you said no accessory dwellings could be short-term rentals and that's why the planning commission didn't have to worry about it, but
No.
I'm hearing different, so maybe I must have misunderstood.
I think the problem is, I can't speak for you obviously, but that was certainly not the intent.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, right now, the motion on the table that has been seconded is to approve the permit application. Is there any further discussion or any amendments to that motion? Okay,
Did Mr. Dooley say we could amend it to not allow it to be a short?
yes, I think you can.
I'd like to make that motion to amend it.
To amend it to add the condition that it could not apply for a short-term rental.
Excuse me, may I ask the town attorney a question?
Yes.
Can we do that for one individual property?
I have some concerns.
Okay.
About doing this as a condition, since Mr. Dooley said, I'm sorry. As Mr. Dooley says, short-term rentals are allowed throughout the town, and to single out this property, just have some concerns about.
So it's something we need to address on a wider issue if we want to.
Yes.
Even though they're getting a conditional use permit to do this.
Yeah,
because
you
they're-
can usually add conditions, but conditional use permit, but still, it's up to council.
I think we should see if the amendment passes or not passes and go from there. Okay? I'm gonna second Mr. Williams' amendment, but we're going to vote on just the amendment right now. Whether or not to add the condition, to restrict it as a short-term rental, or restrict it to not allow it as a short-term rental, okay?
And I'll just make a quick comment. The reason why I'm suggesting this is because from the discussion of the planning commission, the reason they were so supportive of this is because it would provide more affordable housing in town. And so their big concern was, well, what happens if it turns into a short-term rental? We're approving an exception for, another short-term rental. So that's just my
Okay,
opinion.
we're just gonna vote, oh yeah, Mr. Robertson.
Very quickly, briefly, during Desert Storm. There we go. During, I think it was Desert Storm, we did a short-term rental, for the Navy. And, the individual stayed in the house for 4 months until he was deployed.
So a short-term rental is 30 days or less.
Correct. So that is obviously what's going on right now,
Right.
but it's something to think about as well. That's all.
Okay, all right, so we're just gonna vote on the amendment right now. Dr. Sullivan? Nay. Okay, Dr. Brown, or Ms. Brown, Ms. Brown, Ms. Elliott? Yeah.
I don't think we should get in the business of telling people what to do with their property, nay.
Mr. Allison?
Nay.
Mr. Williams? Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Okay, we vote aye, but it fails. And so we are now back to the original motion, which is to approve it as presented.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any further discussion before I go to vote? Okay, Mr. Wood?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Robertson?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye. All right, and with that, I'm gonna join the meeting at 7:50. Oh, wait, Mr. Dunn, why are you raising your hand?
Well, I thought you were gonna make a motion, and I have a second, but anyway, Natasha wanted to present something to council and ask a question.
Just something I want council to consider quickly, in discussions with Heather, there is a clerk community blog, the Virginia Municipal Clerks Association. Yes, where there was discussions there where other localities, council voted and approved to close town offices on July the 5th, which is a Friday. 4th of July is Thursday. And I was asked to bring that up for consideration for council, if you all would consider, based on other localities in the Commonwealth, having the July 5th off, if that's something that you all would consider.
So moved.
Second,
Any further discussion?
I'm just curious, I mean, even the federal government doesn't get the 5th off the day after.
Yes,
They give
Mr.
about
Rowley.
every holiday that exists.
Very often, the governor of Virginia will give a Friday off if there's a holiday on a Thursday to give employees a I don't think he's made that announcement yet, but I don't think it's inappropriate. Our staff is overworked and underpaid, and I think it would be a nice little benefit for them.
It has taken us several years to get them to even a 90% pay rate study. I just say that point. Okay, Mr. Wood,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Ms. Robertson?
I,
Aye.
Aye. Well, you have the 5th off. Okay, now is there a motion to adjourn? 8 PM on the dot. Here we go. Thank you so much. I appreciate your attendance tonight.
No.